Good morning. It is great to be here in our neighboring state of Tennessee. And I was going to come out and ask everybody, how's the summit going for everybody? But that last presentation by Hadi was definitely worth the price of admission. And so I'm here as I am every year. Yeah, I am here as I am every year with a large delegation, a bipartisan delegation from North Carolina. And we come, there they are, there's my friends from North Carolina. And we come here every year because we know at this conference we are going to have the opportunity to go back home and take with us some key nuggets of innovation that we can then use to implement in our state to make students' lives better. So Governor Bush, Patricia, thank you for doing this. Congratulations on 10 years, and you keep raising the bar, so thank you for that. In North Carolina, we believe, as you do, that every child should have the opportunity to receive an excellent education. And that's why we committed to make sure that we were the first state in the nation to have every single classroom connected to high-speed broadband. First state in the nation. And I'm proud to say that that big, hairy, audacious goal, Governor, is going to become reality at the end of this school year. So why did we set such a big goal and spend hundreds of millions of dollars to make it all happen? Well, I think you know the answer. So that every student, regardless of status and regardless of zip code, can have access to the best content and the best instruction in the world. And because we believe in opportunity and choice, we created the Opportunity Scholarship Program to allow parents who are struggling financially to send their kids to the school of their choice, so that poor kids have the same opportunity as wealthier kids. And you will hear from a North Carolina mother who has taken part in this program here on this next panel. And we have a companion program for kids with special needs and a new ESA program for these same students. And ExcelinEd played an integral role to make all of that happen in North Carolina. So thank you again. No parent in our country should be faced with the no choice but to send their child to a school that is not meeting their needs, or to a school that has been failing generation after generation. This is a real scenario and a real national struggle, and that's why we have this next panel discussion. Our moderator for this session, Chris Stewart, is a champion of communities and parents, and he is a champion of equality. As a member of the Minneapolis Public Schools Board of Education, he created the Equity and Achievement Committee. He authored the board's covenant with the African American community, and he advocated for safe and rigorous schools that provided students with the opportunity to succeed in life. He was an organizer for Action for Equity, a grassroots effort to spur innovation in family and education policy at the state level. He describes himself as an evangelical husband, father, writer, speaker, essayist, and education activist. But to the readers of his blog, he is simply Citizen Stewart. Citizen Stewart once said, "Our children are born with unsurpassable worth granted to them by a mighty God. We must fight for them every day." Ladies and gentlemen, it's my pleasure to introduce Chris Stewart to guide us through real stories of real parents and real students and their very real fight for choice and opportunity in education. Please welcome Chris Stewart to the stage.
Thank you so much. Thank you. Well, good morning, everybody. Oh, that's so weak. Come on. Good morning, everybody. You never sound so great as when other people introduce you, so thank you to Governor Forrest. Thank you to Governor Bush and to Patricia Levesque for having me here today. In 24 hours, what I have discovered about Nashville is, what would make Nashville better would be country music. There's just not enough country music in Nashville. It's sorely lacking, which is surprising to me. Listen, I am honored and humbled to be in this room with you today because I think that you all, the work that you are doing is answering a critical question, a question that burns in my heart every day. And that question is, how are we going to make sure that every kid in America gets a personalized, fitting education, one that actually puts them on the path to a high-wage, high-growth occupation, and one that helps them meet their personal highest potential? And related to that question is something that is going to be what we're going to talk about today on the panel. It's a second question. is that how do we honor the fact that districts and schools don't have kids? Parents have kids. And if we honor that, how can we make sure that we're part of a movement that has parents and students leading from the front and not from the back? It's one of the most important things that we can get right moving forward. I come to you today as a parent activist. The only reason that I'm standing here today is that some years ago, I was a parent with a problem. My problem was I had two things going against me. One, I didn't have a great education myself, and two, I had low resources. But I also had a kid who I loved with a kind of love that you just can't even imagine. You probably can imagine it if you have a kid, right? But I was also desperate for the idea that I didn't know how I was going to get him to have a better life than I had. And what happened to us in middle school was that we came up against a brick wall. The next school that he was supposed to attend, the school that we were assigned to, was one that would virtually ensure that he was not going to be successful. By all accounts, from all people that I talked to, it was a school that had completely given up on teaching kids, and it was unsafe. And it broke my heart, because I felt like we were at the end of our rope. I found schools that were alternatives that we couldn't afford. I found schools that had no seats and had criteria that we couldn't get into. And when I came up with complete goose eggs, it was at that moment that I think God intervened in my life, and we found a school. We found a charter school, and I didn't know what a charter school was, to be very honest with you. That charter school saved the game for us. It set my son up for a high-quality private high school where he went on full scholarship, which set him up for a private college, which actually had him in his 20s do something that was my wildest dreams, was to graduate in 4 years from a college with the opportunity to travel the world and see things that in my early 20s I would have killed to have his life. It was something that made me cry on graduation day. Partially because my portion of paying for it was over, and partially because I knew that he was going to go into the world and realize his dreams. That's the American dream. Every parent wants their kids to do better than they have done. And it takes warriors like you to enable the type of story I just told. So often we think of a very flat stereotype of the parents that we are working to serve. So often we think of that parent as a low education, low information, low opportunity parent who needs saving. And what I love about the panel and the stories that we have today is it provides a richer, more nuanced look at the type of parents across a range who are benefiting and need you to fight for school choice and for more educational options. I would love to start the discussion with you, Cristina, because you have a story. Several of these stories have broken my heart. But you have one of the most unique stories that I've heard that relates to schools and school choice. So could you just tell us a little bit about your experience?
Absolutely. I think my story is a little bit different because I come from a state that has wonderful school choice. I come from the state of Florida. Thanks to Governor Bush, in part, we have a lot of school choice. We have great public schools, great charter schools, great magnet schools, great private schools, especially in my area. But I found out that none of those choices really worked for my son. 3 years ago, Nicholas was diagnosed with a brain tumor, and just after he graduated from kindergarten. And so we went through a full year of chemotherapy and radiation and surgery, and it was really a struggle to save his life. But when it was all over, we realized that he had significant learning disabilities. He had a stroke during surgery, and the radiation, I don't know how much of you know about it, but radiation to the brain in a developing child is catastrophic. So when we were all done and we were ready to start school again, we realized that none of the choices that we had were really going to work for him. Socially, he was a very typical kid, but he had significant learning disabilities. And the programs that were available in my area for children who had such significant learning disabilities were really for children who had significant cognitive disabilities as well. And we just didn't think that that psychologically for him was going to work. So we had him tested, and they basically told us that we were going to have to create a program for him. And we were going to have extensive speech therapy to learn to talk again, extensive physical therapy because of the stroke, extensive occupational therapy. And frankly, the cost of that was just astronomical. Between the private teachers that he needed one-on-one and all this therapy, it was just really astronomical. And so a friend of mine told me about a Gardiner Scholarship that Florida offers, and I started researching that. And on its face, it looked like a wonderful opportunity for us. It's a scholarship that Florida offers for children with learning disabilities in order to help pay for some of these resources that they need. But Nicholas and children with cancer didn't fit in. It was available to children with Down syndrome and autism and cerebral palsy and other diseases, but it was not available for children who had suffered a stroke or children who had learning disabilities because of cancer. And through all this, I've become a huge pediatric cancer advocate, and I thought to myself, well, this just isn't fair, and I want to change the law. Being a lawyer, I thought that was going to be really easy. I was just going to call my representatives, and we were going to do this, because who's going to say no to a kid with cancer in order to expand the scholarship? Well, I found that that was our new battle. We had saved his life, but the issue is such a partisan issue that I couldn't even get my representatives to call me back. And so my challenge was fighting the legislature. It wasn't fighting the school board, it was fighting the legislature. And literally making hundreds of calls every single day, to the point that some of the representatives who wouldn't call me back, their assistants knew me just by my voice. At the moment I would say, good morning, they would say, hello, Mrs. Maxwell, how are you? I'm sorry the representative hasn't gotten back to you. And then, so I really had to learn how to lobby the system, so to speak, as a mom. But I found it to be almost an overwhelming challenge that at times I almost gave up. But I just kept thinking about all those other kids with cancer that are diagnosed every day, and I knew that they needed this too. And so we won. And
Applause.
The law was expanded.
Yeah.
And finally, a representative, a senator in Florida, Anita Flores, I don't know if she's here today, but she listened to me, she heard my story, and she helped me get it passed. So now children in Florida who have cancer-related learning disabilities or stroke-related learning disabilities are eligible for the Gardiner Scholarship.
Gives me goosebumps. One of the most powerful words that I love hearing parents say is, we won, right? Like you did it, you succeeded. Theresa, I want to go to you because parents are often, as parents, we're often criticized by fighting for the specific needs of our kids and pulling them out of the district maybe, or putting them into opportunities that other people don't think we should have. You had students that actually earned their AA degree while still in high school.
Yes.
So what would be, let's hear a little bit about your story and how you got there, but also your response to folks who would say to us that we're somehow being selfish by seeking out opportunity for our kids.
Well, first of all, we're never selfish when we're seeking out opportunities for our students, because ultimately it's going to help other students.
That's right.
To follow in their footsteps. But so I'm a mother of 7, and my youngest 3, they were privileged to be able to attend 21st Century Charter School, which is a charter school in Gary, Indiana, that's sponsored by the Geo Foundation. I was looking for a school for them to go to, and we stumbled upon 21st Century. I went in to do a walkthrough of the school, and I talked to the principal, and she was telling me about a program that they had at school that allowed the students to earn their AA while they were still in high school. And I just thought that was amazing. And then they told us that the school pays for everything: transportation, books, tuition, whatever they need. If they needed a uniform to go to that school, they pay for everything. So I was on board. I was ready to sign the papers right then and there. It was a waiting list. My daughters got in, my son didn't, but my son was able to get into a gifted and talented program in the city. That didn't work out for us. It was not a good fit for him, and I was able to bring him over to the charter school as well. Long story short, My daughter, Naisha, she graduated in 2014. With her AA, she went on to a four-year university where she started in as a junior because she already had those 2 years under her belt. So the cost, the savings that we received from the school paying for those first years was tremendous. She earned scholarships. She went through college with $1,500 in debt when she graduated 2.5 years later.
Wow. Wow. Wow.
So she's just turned 21 in November, and she came back to teach at the charter school where we went to. So she's teaching geometry.
Wow.
She's teaching geometry there, and it gives the other students something to work towards. And my daughter, my youngest daughter, Denisha, she's now at Purdue Fort Wayne. She entered as a junior as well because she had those 2 years under her belt. And my son, Antonio, he's set to graduate next year. So he's now, he's finished with all his high school courses, and he's taking college courses, all college courses at Indiana State University. So it's just an amazing program. It's an amazing opportunity for them. And why not give our children those opportunities? So
what would you say to people, though, who criticize our ability to have these choices and make us feel like we are somewhat selfish for choosing them?
Well, our students deserve these opportunities. They deserve to have these opportunities. And it's not like they're taking the same tax dollars that you're paying for the high school, for the regular student. There's no extra tax dollars that they're spending. They're taking those same tax dollars and they're using them to benefit the students. So they don't just take college courses. These college courses are used, and some of them in place of their high school courses. Our school is really small. We don't have a language teacher there, but they're able to go to the college and get their language requirements covered. So,
what a novel idea. The dollars are for the child and not for the system, right?
Yes.
I love it, love it, love it. So I would love to go to a student experience. So I would love to hear more of your story, Briana. You, in something that you wrote recently, you tell a story about how you and a middle school friend went different directions. I'd love to hear a little bit more about the different directions, but just your story in general, your story of educational opportunity.
Sure. So I'm a part of the first wave of charter school alumni who have graduated from high school and who are now entering the workforce. So thank you to all the advocates who helped make that possible for me. I'm an alumni of Marion P. Thomas Charter School in Newark, New Jersey, which is the largest minority-owned and independently operated charter school in Newark, New Jersey. When I was in the 4th grade, my mother transferred me to this charter school from my local district school because she was concerned for our safety. I was very young and I was very upset because I wanted to stay with my friends. I didn't want to transfer to a school where I had to wear a uniform, I had to get up early, I had to stay late, I had to do homework, I had to be a responsible student. And my mother, she was like, well, you know, this is what I want you to do, so this is what you're going to do. Luckily, and so I did it. I didn't really have a choice. And one of my friends had transferred with me to this school, and we were really rebellious about it. We spent the next few months planning how we were going to convince our parents to bring us back to our district school so we can be with our friends. And after a few months of trying to convince my mother, she did not budge. She was like, no, you're going to stay here, and in fact, your sister's going to go here too. So both of you are going to be here. And my friend transferred back to our local district school. At the time, I didn't understand why that mattered or what the significance was. It wasn't until the 7th grade that I began to see how our lives changed and our paths diverged. After middle school, I went off to a magnet school in Newark, one of the best magnet schools, Science Park High School. After that, I went off to Rutgers University, where I earned a double degree in public policy and African studies. Fast forward 6 years later, I'm beginning my career in Washington, D.C., starting my dream job, and my friend overdosed earlier this year, and she didn't make it to her 24th birthday. I'm not at all attributing my friend's circumstances to her opportunity for education or her parents' educational choices. But what I am going to say is that the power of a school that is intentional in their approach to supporting their students and investing in each student can make all the difference. I cannot imagine what my life would be like without my Marion P. Thomas family. They supported me after middle school through high school. And even once I was ready to graduate high school, they helped me decide what college I was going to go to. They helped me pick my major. They helped me think about the real world application of a major so that I can land a job and not just waste my time while I was there. They helped me fill out my financial aid forms. I was a first-generation college student. I didn't know what FAFSA was. I didn't know the importance of filing your taxes early. I didn't know anything. And they really held my hand and guided me through that process. When I ultimately enrolled in Rutgers University, I was a recipient of a Marion P. Thomas Charter School Foundation Scholarship, which is a part of their Crayons to College program where they give scholarships to alumni who go off to college. So while I was an undergrad, I received the scholarship from my middle school. Wow. So for me, it was definitely more than just a school. It was a family. It was a village. It was a community school that was started by community members for the community to empower Newark residents. And I think that's exactly what it did for me. After I graduated college, I went back and I worked there, and they helped me land the job that I have now working for the National Alliance. So I'm really thankful to the support of my Marion P. Thomas family. I'm even more thankful that my mother didn't listen to me and she forced me to stay in this school. And I'm thankful for all the policymakers and advocates who made this possible and made charter schools an option for me in Newark. So thank you.
Awesome. Awesome. So my charter school didn't do all that. So I think I'm gonna have to get back to them. They're slacking a little bit. Whitney, I'd love to hear your story because it takes us a little bit different direction. You have had to be a real warrior in your circumstances. Can you tell us a little bit more, for someone who hasn't heard your story, what was the challenge that you faced and how you overcame it?
I'm a resident of Tennessee, and we do have emerging legislation here. 2016, they passed the IEA program here, which is an individual education savings account for children with special needs. I did not hear about it right away. Luckily, I had some friends at the Beacon Center here who contacted me and asked me to help them get the word out about this program. I was so excited. I did the video. I thought, here it goes. This is great. My daughter, I guess you would say, in the middle. Not on top of the spectrum and certainly not at the bottom. In a nutshell, there was just nothing for my daughter in the school system. She would kind of get tossed either at the top, put her head down, and disappear as a person, and it just tune out. Moving 4 miles from my home put me into a school system, where we were zoned, that put her at the bottom, and it was my only option at that time. Having that individual education savings account in Tennessee was great, but there were no participating schools. I had nowhere to go. So I began knocking on doors everywhere. I began emailing, I began calling. I literally knocked on doors and waited for them to open. And then one day, someone did open. They made an appointment with me, and I found a private Montessori school that took my daughter in. And it has changed our lives. It has changed my daughter's life. My daughter is on the verge of reading. No more head on the desk. No more fights to go to school. I'm extremely thankful for this woman that opened her door, who is going to be a part of this program next year. Extremely thankful.
Beautiful. That's beautiful. So I'd love to switch to another student story. So Walter, would love to talk a little bit about your story. I saw a video where you gave an interview where you were speaking about your former school before you went to a choice school. And in it, you said you felt like you had no worth in the school. I felt like it was a heartbreaking statement to hear from someone so young. What was going on in that school before you made the change? And what did the new circumstances look like once you had an option?
Well, it was completely different. The school that I was attending was very different. It was structured. It was, I'm going to teach you this, this, and this, and I'm going to pass you on. Whether you pass, whether you fail, it doesn't matter. I'm still going to pass you on. And so one of my really famous stories is I had received a Spider-Man shirt, button-down shirt. I love to dress up. I thought it was silk, but now that I think about it, maybe not. It was just super soft, and I was young, so of course it has to be silk. But I'd wear it all the time, all the time. I'd sleep in it. I'd go out, play with my friends in it. I'd go to school in it. My mom's like, okay, I'm going to take this from you so I can go and wash it because you probably haven't washed it in months. So I'm going to take this just for a little bit, and you can have it back. But I love the shirt. And I remember one day I went to school, and I was bullied a lot. Everyone knew that, and I was constantly bullied. And so the shirt ended up getting ripped off of my body. Buttons flew everywhere. And I really wasn't concerned about the bullying. I just wanted my shirt back, you know? And so I came home that day to my mom, and I was crying. You know, that's my favorite shirt. I love it. I'm a kid. And that was the biggest thing. I just felt like I was another number. I felt that I had no purpose. I felt that, you know, everybody goes to school, everybody learns, everybody's just here. It's a mundane routine. To me, that was school. There was no sign that it could be something better. And so kind of the same thing with Bree. The school that I was going to, it was a little bit more strict. It was a little bit more structured. There was uniforms. I had to be up early. And I'm just like, Mom, you know, I do not want to do this. But she was smart. She was onto something that I couldn't see. That's why you have parents, because they see further than you can see as a kid. And I'm not saying that private school is better than public school. I actually have a friend who graduated from the school that I came from, and he's playing for the Jacksonville Jaguars now, making $5 million a year. So, I mean, that's a good deal.
Yes.
And so,
pretty good deal.
Right. And so when I attended this private school, from day one it changed. It came to a point where I was actually excited to go to school to learn. And the school that I was attending previously was actually failing, so I was behind. So I'm going to this school, and I'm learning things that I had never even heard of, never even learned. My favorite thing was astronomy. And we were studying, one of the sections that we were studying were how the astronauts go up into space. And they're showing us all these videos of all the ice falling off the rocket before it's taking off. And I'm just like, wow, like, this is amazing. Like, I've never seen anything like this. And there were almost some days where I was waking up before my parents. You know, I'm waking up, I'm like, hey, you know, let's get to school. I gotta get to school. I gotta get there early so I can talk to my teachers, so I can have a game plan. So when, you know, if it comes time for class, I'm already ahead. I already know what she's going to teach on. All the other students are looking at me like, how do you know all this? I'm like, you know, I just got it like that.
Right.
That's just the way it is. But that school focused on my learning, what I needed. This is how Walter learns. This is the best way we can get Walter to focus. This is how he is receptive to what we're telling him. The school before, they didn't take the time to do that. Actually, I had one professor, I was coming off of a basketball game that we'd lost. Really tough. I love basketball. I'm super competitive. So normally if we'd lose, the next day I wouldn't even go to school. Like, everyone knew that was just the thing. And so I had to go because I was taking some test or whatever. And so he's like, are you doing okay? He's like, it was a tough loss. And I said, yeah, you know, I was just talking to him. He's like, next time when you're hitting threes, you know, keep your elbow in, extend at the top of your shot, you'll be fine. He's like, if you want, you know, after school, we can go and work on some shots, get some studying. And so those kind of things are the things that I respond to as a person. Human interaction. Let's get to know who Walter is. Let's figure out why Walter did this. If it's something bad, let's figure out why he did it so it doesn't happen again. Instead of just saying, okay, well, he's talking, we're going to put him in a corner and isolate him from everybody. And even when I'd get put in a corner, I'd sit and not do anything. So it got to a point where school was actually a waste of time. My parents and I always joke that they were at the school more than I was for whatever reasons.
Yeah.
And so it was just like at this school, the private school that I had attended, it made all the difference. If you ask my mom, if you ask anyone in my family that 15 years ago I'd be doing what I'm doing today, not a chance. No one in my family does this. And similar to what Bree was saying, I actually, a week ago, found out that a cousin that I grew up with passed away over some nonsense that took place in his house. Same environment, grew up in the same area, But my mom saw something in me, and she said, I'm not gonna let you end up like this. I'm gonna pull you out and do whatever I can do to make sure you succeed. And look where I'm at. It's just, you can't take that away. And a huge portion of that is from the education that I had received and my loving family, of course.
Hats off to your family. Hats off. I think your mom might be the one at table 9 crying, is that right? Not to call her out, but I travel the country, I hear a lot of school choice stories, and I've never heard one predicated on a Spider-Man t-shirt. So thank you for that. I want to switch to Kelley Williams-Bolar. Kelley, you have a story that made national news that is just, to me, heartbreaking, as all these stories are, but yours really shows the level to which parents will go to get their kid a great education. Can you tell us a little bit about the problem that you faced and what the consequences were?
Absolutely. First, I want to say thank you so much for having me here. Some years back, I decided to enroll my daughters in my parents' school district. And they had been there for 2 years. The second year, I guess they had hired an investigator to follow us around to make sure we weren't, not following the rules. And come to find out, I did not live in the district, so they asked us to remove my 2 girls. I wanted to, kind of let them hear me out and explain why I really wanted them there. We had safety issues, and of course, education was a big factor. And I went to the juvenile center, and I got a permit from the judge to say that it was a grandparent power of attorney, to say that my parents could have my daughters enrolled at the school. Well, that lasted until June, and then the courts had to go back. A particular judge had to say, okay, you can't have your children there because they had fought against that. So I took the children out. Life goes on, a year go by, 18 months go by, and I received this State versus Kelley Williams-Bolar. And I'm like, well, what is this? So I tell my dad, I'm like, Daddy, I got this State versus Kelley Williams-Bolar. I don't know what it is. I've never been in trouble before. And so my dad said, come over, let me see it. So I went over there, and he wasn't for sure either, but he had a better clue than I did. And he said, go check my mailbox. Sure enough, he had the same card. And so that was the process. So we began the process. We went to court. We found out that it was, Copley Fairlawn City Schools that had, charged us with grand theft and tampering with documents. They charged myself, and they also charged my dad. So I won't get emotional. Sorry. I promised myself I wouldn't get emotional.
It's okay.
So we went through the process, and we went to court. I'd never been to court before, never even sat in the courtroom. And so, I got charged, and I had to my sentence was 10 days in the county, which I ended up staying 9 days of the 10. And, I survived, and I ended up getting, I had to do 40 hours of community service, had to write a letter to the judge what I had done wrong. There was quite a few things that I had to, do to get back on track in life. And the hardest thing of it all was my father, because, my dad, he would do anything for anybody, and especially, for me. And so he decided that he had helped me with the enrollment. So my father he got charged too, and that's the biggest thing is that he got charged. And when he got charged, and he fought against them so much that they gave him a year in the penitentiary.
Oh, wow.
And he died. He never came home.
Oh,
So that is why I fight. And I fight for so many parents because we're just moms and dads. We're just people that just want our kids to have equality, to have a great education. That's it. We don't want our children going down the wrong aisle. We want our kids to be something in life better than what journey we've taken. And that's why I'm sitting here today, because I fight every single day. I work for a school system in my town, and every day I go in and I tell those children how great they are. And the chances that they are sitting there today is so unique. And I fight every day. And there's so many other people that fight like we do, that fight and want so much for their children. So that's my story in a nutshell. Can't say anymore. I might really just crack up. Thank you.
I mean, when the moderator is not going to be able to carry on. Got problems. Charged with grand theft for stealing an education in the United States of America. Get your mind around that. In some cases, this is happening more than we ever admit. School districts are hiring private investigators to investigate parents. They're going to parents' houses and saying, I need to see a bedroom for this specific child, and parents are letting them in the house without any type of warrant to see bedrooms. And it's happening specifically in districts that want to make sure that they don't take on too many low-income kids. It's a national problem. I'd love to see a show of hands of people who would think that they could dedicate themselves to making sure that another story like that is never told. God bless you. God bless you all. Charlonda, last but not least, I know. Kelley, you made us all a wreck, but I love you for it. Charlonda, you also had to fight to get a good education for your children, your students. And in North Carolina, you found a program that has worked for you. So I'd love to hear a little bit more about that.
Well, once again, thank you for being here. I'm honored to sit on this panel with these ladies and this gentleman. The best that I have to offer this world leaves the house wearing 2 book bags. One wears Paw Patrol and the other one wears Master Chief. That is the best I have to offer. My job is to make sure that they are prepared to become productive citizens. When my 14-year-old Amori went to kindergarten, he went into an environment that was chaotic and unstructured. He was given busy work because he could tie his shoes and because he could write his name. And that was extremely frustrating because that's not the environment a kindergartner should be in. I took those concerns to the administration, and those concerns were met with frustration. They threw their hands up. The class was full. What do you expect us to do? So at that time, my only alternative was a private school. He went into a private school in kindergarten, and he flourished. He was reading in the 3rd month. He was writing in cursive. This child just completely flourished. Well, life changed for me, and I could no longer afford that private school education, and he had to go back into the public sector. When he went back to a system that was worse than what he left. He went into a chronically failing school that was not just failing and low performing, but it wasn't safe. He didn't have books. He was bullied by students, and he was bullied by teachers. A teacher actually said to him that he didn't relate to his peers because he didn't talk black. Now, I have no idea what that means, but to come from a professional, it was infuriating. I saw this wonderful, energetic child become isolated and withdrawn. He was becoming a person that I didn't recognize, and that angered me. And so by any means necessary, I had to get him out of that system. And I was doing a Google search when I found the Opportunity Scholarship. And it was like the heavens opened. This is wonderful. It just seemed too good to absolutely be true. So when they called and said that he had been accepted, I hung up on them. I thought it was a joke. And when she called back and was like, no, this is for real, I could have fainted. He went into that school in January of the new year, and this child became the bubbly person that I knew before. Like Walter, he was like, I don't want to be late. I got to meet my teacher. I don't want to be late. I said, well, Maury, you don't have to be there to 7:30. It's 6:45. We got time. I don't want to be late. So I drop him off. He'd be the first person there, and have a good day. I now have a 4-year-old who has some special needs, and he'll be entering kindergarten soon. My 4-year-old was stillborn. And so by the grace of God, he lives today. He does have some brain damage, and he has one functioning limb. He has one arm. He's a one-armed person. But I don't see that as a deficit for him. However, the public school system does. They don't see the possibility. They don't see the greatness in him that I see. I know a public school kindergarten class is not appropriate. The first placement they wanted to give him was to Edgewood, which is a developmental school. And at Edgewood Developmental, you have children who are on feeding tubes and are in wheelchairs, and some of them are nonverbal. That's fantastic if that's what your child needs. But that's not what my Julian needs. They looked at his physical disability and treated him like his mind was on vacation. And I didn't appreciate that. So when the educational savings accounts in North Carolina, and shout out to the legislators and the Lieutenant Governor from North Carolina, I thank you so much for bringing the Opportunity Scholarship and for the educational savings account, the Children with Disabilities grants, and I hope that we can expand it so no parent has to make the choice between, am I gonna pay the rent or am I gonna pay the tuition? That's a hard decision to make. Every school, from kindergarten to elementary to high school in the district I'm supposed to attend, is a failing school. I don't have the option to go out of district because they took that. So you don't have an option and you don't have a choice. Well, failure is not an option at my house. So the Opportunity Scholarship gave me an option, and it gave my children choice. And I'm grateful for that choice.
So interesting about that is all across America, every morning, millions of kids get out of a car or a bus and go into schools that are gonna virtually ensure that they don't reach their potential. And you know that as a parent. You see your child as a happy, funny, go-lucky person, and then you put them in a school that doesn't see them as that. Can some of you talk a little bit about the after you found, the change in your children after they found a good fit? Like, what changes in the world? Once you get a good fit, what changes?
I'm excited to go first for that one. Okay, Amori is a very quirky child, okay? He's a little different. Yeah.
Does he have a Spider-Man shirt?
Huh?
Does he have a Spider-Man
No, he's
shirt?
Batman.
Oh, he's got a Batman shirt, okay. Okay, I'm gonna have to talk to him about his choices. All right.
But in the public school system, his quirkiness was not seen as a positive. In this private school sector, his quirkiness is a positive. He's excelling on the football team. He excels in track. I didn't even know the boy could run fast. He's showing his skills on the basketball court. Another thing I didn't know he could do. He's a great artist. Didn't know that either. All these dots and things that he's coming up with. He has a love of science. He took the SAT as an 8th grader, and he scored high enough as an 8th grader to be admitted into college. That wouldn't have happened in a public school setting. He's excited because he has books, and books that he can bring home. And that shouldn't be something that excites a school-age child, to be able to have books. But he's excited about books. He talks more about the future when he didn't see a future. When you would ask him before he left public school, what do you want to be? And he would say a high school senior, because he didn't see past that. You ask him today what he wants to be, and it's either he wants to be a cartoonist because he wants to make Batman thinner, or he wants to be a shoe designer, or he wants to be an engineer, or he wants to be an occupational therapist because he wants to add more help to help his little brother. But the private school opened up a side that he could be himself, and it was okay to be that quirky kid at 14 that still carries Batman everywhere he goes.
I mean, some would argue that he could be a 49-year-old man with a pink tie who still loves comics and stories. Walter, that must resonate with you a bit, the ability to just be yourself when you get into an environment that isn't so restricting their view of who you are.
Yeah, it's absolutely incredible, and I'm trying to hold my composure because I can relate 100%. And there's no truer version of yourself than you. And when you're in an environment where you can't be yourself, who are you? You're not yourself. My mom would always tell me, no one can be like you, so be you, be different. If you want to wear Spider-Man at college, do it. That was a conversation we had maybe 2 weeks ago.
Right.
So, you know, but it's for me, it's who I am. It's an expression of myself. And if you don't like it, then that's not my problem.
That's right.
I'm not going to compromise my happiness and my identity for the opinions of others who may not even like me at all. And so it's just, that's so amazing. When we met in DC, and you were talking about him, and I was thinking of all the stuff we were doing and hanging out and stuff, and the hair and the suits and everything. I'm just like, that's exactly how I was. And it's hard to see it now because of that transition, but to look back and to see my little brothers and to see your son, it's just like, look how far all of us have come. Amen. And I actually spoke with a multimillionaire a couple weeks ago, and he told me, you better yourself to better others. And that's what this is all about. All of these stories are great. All of our experiences are great, but they mean nothing unless we continue to dip into that pool and pull other people out.
That's right.
And so,
Wow.
it's just truly an honor to be here.
So hats off to Mom at Table 9. Clearly, Walter is blowing my mind. And I would love to bring him home and have him talk to 5 kids that I know. I'd love to hear from Whitney and Cristina. I think we give short shrift to students with special needs in a lot of the discussions that we have about education and education reform. And I would love to hear if you have any thoughts about how we could keep the issue more front and center and know more about what parents actually really suffer when they are trying to get the best for their children.
Well, I think I was just really shocked of how partisan the issue has become. And I was really taken aback that my own representatives wouldn't take my calls because what I was asking for didn't fit within their platform. And I thought to myself, I shouldn't have to be fighting this hard for kids with cancer. I shouldn't, they fight so hard just to live, and then they make it through the tunnel, and at the end of the tunnel, there's another obstacle now in education. And it shouldn't have to be so hard. We're individuals with individual children with special needs, and it shouldn't be a partisan issue. I cannot tell you how many phone calls. It was really a full-time job for me. Making phone calls, writing letters, asking my friends to make phone calls and write letters. And most of my phone calls and most of my letters and most of my emails were just not answered. And just as a mom, I couldn't understand that. I really, as a constituent, I couldn't understand it. Why is it such a problem that our children just don't fit into that box? And our children just want to learn just like everybody else. And they want an opportunity just like everybody else. And if they don't fit into that box, they should be given the opportunity to find another avenue. And that other avenue, a lot of times, is just overwhelmingly expensive. It's
Prohibitive.
It's prohibitive. I will tell you that we pay, the cost of my son now is what most people pay for a private college education. Wow. And so we are dipping into the college savings that we had for him. And look, if I have to get a second mortgage on my home, if I have to get another job, if I have to do whatever it is I have to do, I'm going to do it because I owe that to him.
That's right.
And luckily with this scholarship that Florida offers, it's helped. And it just shouldn't have to be so hard. I shouldn't have to fight my legislature to provide for my son. Answer my call. Listen to my story, because it may not fit into your platform, but there is another side, and you should listen.
And we are fastly coming to time, but I think that is a great, powerful statement. Answer our call. Answer our call. I'm grateful to all the parents here today who shared your stories, because it gives us a richer sense of what parents are really facing. It's not the stereotype that we always think. Those of you in the room who actually do policy and actually spend a lot of time thinking about this every day can think that your work is terribly unsexy. You might at times think that day by day that your work is about business and politics and policy, but policy is about making the lives of people better. So when I hear answer the call, I'm asking everyone in the room today to really answer the call. Fight as hard as the parents here are fighting for their kids. Fight for your constituents and fight for us. We need warriors to fight for the rights of our kids. Thank you so much to all of our parents. Give a round of applause to everybody. And I think Patricia is going to come up and help us get to the next section.
Wow. How can I close out this session except to say thank you to these parents and to these students for overcoming and for not giving up and for going to any means necessary to make sure their children had a high-quality education. If you guys recall at the very opening session, I said what ExcelinEd believes and what I hope everyone in this room believes, and that's that policy changes lives. The parents and the students on the stage would not have had the opportunities that they have had, but for you being willing to take a hard vote, but for you being willing to make sure that there are public school choice options, that there are public charter options, that there are private options and virtual options and options out there that just are not one size fits all. Pluralism is a good thing. If you could help me thank these panelists one more time for standing up for their children.
Thank you all.
So you got to see the face of policy, and we want to try to bring you more faces. And so if you all could help us get the word out, there is a Choices in Education video contest. So we're collecting videos with lots of national and state partners across the country to hear more stories about students who have had their lives changed in public charter, virtual, private home education options. The deadline for video submission is December 8th. We would love your help getting the word out.